All right, here I am giving you a video on, hang on a second, I'm trying to, all right, there we go, on the reason identifications for the pro-con. And I want to warn you that the reasons lesson, lesson 4, part 1 and part 2, are by far the hardest lesson in the entire semester. Mostly because it's so intricate and detailed. So please be patient with this video. It will be longer than most of the videos. But if you put me on 2 times speed, you enable the captions, you should be okay to pause and play and to get your answers down. So remember, we're doing our pro-con argument on with the topic of homelessness. Remember, what you're going to do is you're going to list the reasoning they supply. So reasoning can include reasons and supporting reasons. It's hard to detect supporting reasons in particular, but it's hard also to detect reasons, but we'll go through this together. Once you're done, of course, this is where the video will be. What you're going to do is you're going to come down here, just like Jen did in her semester, listing out, the two responses, the pro and the con, listing out the reasons. Now, in her particular semester, the pro gave 2 reasons, each had a supporting reason. The con gave 3 reasons, one with supporting reasons. Most arguments are about that length. This particular argument has a lot more reasoning for each side. So let me get to that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over. If you'll just be patient, I'm going to switch over my my sharing. I'm going to share over to the PDF answer key. All right, here we go. Remember, I said it's going to be a long video. Please be patient. So we've already identified the evidence and we've labeled the type of evidence and the possible or potential weaknesses each type of evidence might have. So all we're going to do in this video is we're going to go through each of the arguments and we're going to list out their reasons. Now you'll see that I've mostly paraphrased in many cases. I know it's really long. In some cases I've quoted. You can just give a phrase for each one in your outline. You don't need to give complete sentences like I do here. So we're going to start. Our issue is, are camping bans an effective strategy to address the homelessness? Devin Kurtz says yes, camping bans are an effective strategy. Why? Because, the key here is the because. Because the reason is straightforward. There's a portion of homeless population that resist assistance. That's one reason why bans are effective. Another reason is, and I'm sorry, so that's the first reason, but the supporting reason is followed right after that. He explains that no matter how much effort is given to help them, they refuse to leave their camp. So notice he's trying to explain to you why they're resistant to assistance. You simply don't want to. So that's reason 1 with its supporting reason. We'll come down here to reason 2 with also a supporting reason. Why are bans effective? Because we have right here that the fastest growing portion of the homeless suffer from mental illness and or substance abuse. So then after that, he gives a supporting reason to sort of explain that. So he says those struggling with these disorders are the ones most often living in tents on the streets. Okay. Now I know you're probably wondering, there obviously there are going to be huge weaknesses in in this reasoning, but we'll get back to that, and then we'll get to that to the next video. All right, he goes on. So that's reason 2 with his supporting reason. Reason 3, right here, he says the bans are effective because this creates a challenge to getting the people help, and as a result, low success rates of voluntary outreach. In other words, what he's saying is the bans are effective because the voluntary outreach is not working well. Why? Because of the challenges of mental health and substance abuse. Reason 4, the bans will work because there is more at risk for failing to get these people off the streets than not enforcing the bans. In other words, the bans are effective because without the bans, there's going to be more loss of life or injury, assault, these sorts of things is what he's alluding to. Continuing here with reason 4, he says getting these people off the streets is a matter of life and death. I kind of struggled with going, well, is this really a supporting reason of reason 4? But I think it's really just a continuation of the failure to get them off the streets without bans is really a matter of life and death. So that's reason 4. Coming down here to Devin's last or fifth reason, why do bans work? Because not enforcing bans results in people being left outside to die in the elements. That might seem like it goes with reason 4, but it's just an additional reason to talk about why life and death. Again, I struggled whether or not that might be a supporting reason, but I see it as a separate reason. And then finally, his sixth reason is the bans work because, and I just quoted here, the force of law must be used to ensure the safety of those individuals who will not comply. So that's why he thinks the bans are effective to addressing the homeless. So he has 6 reasons. Reasons 1, reasons 2 have supporting reasons, but other than that, just 6 reasons why he thinks the bans will work. Now let's take a look at why Alec thinks bans will not be an effective strategy. So he answers no, these bans will not be effective because he is much more dense. He has 7 reasons, an additional reason, but he has more, well, I guess he doesn't have more supporting reasons. But there's some stuff that's tricky with Alec. So I want to point this out to you so you don't get hung up on it as you go through it. Why are bans not effective? They are not effective because bans are dangerous fixes, he puts that in quotes, to a real problem. And his supporting reason to that real problem, what he means by that is rent is too high. Hope already you're starting to see that doesn't make sense, but we'll cover it in the next video. Why else are bans not effective? Because many people are being evicted and incomes cannot cover the rising cost of rent. That's why bans are not effective. Again, I'll comment on why this has some weaknesses. Now this next section, I didn't want you to get hung up. Notice he says, while camping bans try to render homelessness invisible, they don't address the fact that people sleep outside because they don't have a home. I want you to ignore that sentence for now because this is part of his partial counter argument. We'll cover it in another lesson. Why else? So we have reason 1 with a supporting reason, reason 2. We're skipping over his partial counter argument. His third reason why he thinks bans will not work or not effective is because he says down here that communities should direct their financial resources to, quote, rental assistance, affordable housing, employment, substance, which I misspelled, forgive me, use, and behavioral health instead of enforcing camping bans. So they're not effective because communities should direct their sources elsewhere. Reason 4, which is down here, he goes on, he says bans, quote, take away people's autonomy, medicine, IDs, and life-saving possessions, displacing them from public view. This is why they will not be effective. Reason 5, which is down here, is, quote, the bans are ineffective because, quote, locking up someone who is on a treatment wait list or ticketing someone who has nowhere else to sleep traumatizes people and robs them of their dignity. Reason 6 why he thinks bans are not effective is right here. He says, quote, preventing people from accessing vital services by jailing them does nothing to promote community safety and health. I'm using a lot of quotes for him. You're going to see why in the next video. Reason 7, which has a supporting reason, he says, the reason why bans are not effective is they create more problems than solutions. And what does he mean by that? This is his 2 supporting reasons that go with it, which take up the rest of this paragraph. He said, because a new criminal record can prevent or further delay someone from gaining access to housing, and finding or arresting someone for life-sustaining activities such as eating in public creates a costly, cruel, homeless to prison pipeline. I want you to ignore, so let me really quick here. So he has, Devin had 6 reasons, he has 7 reasons, and his 7th reason has 2 supporting reasons. Plus he has that partial counter argument, and he also has another partial counter argument here. Instead of tasks already overburden law enforcement agencies to enforce laws punishing people for not having housing, they are pursuing evidence-based approaches and they're succeeding. So you're going to ignore that for now too. Boy, I know. That's crazy, right? So you might want to, again, go through this in 2 times speed. You can pause pause and play it. But basically, if you can just, list out the reasons, 6 reasons, the 2 with supporting reasons, just using phrases to indicate. You don't need to use complete sentences like I did. I mean, you can if you want. I'm just trying to save you some time. So what I'll look for when I score this is that you've got the 6 reasons for Devin with the 2 supporting reasons for reasons 1 and 2, that you got the 7 reasons for Alec with supporting reasons, 2 supporting reasons for his 7th reason, and that you ignore the 2 partial counter arguments. So those are the reasons. Reasons are, man, this is a hard lesson. Trust me. Next part, the second part of this lesson, part 2 of lesson 4, is super hard because now we're going to be looking at weaknesses. And as you might suspect, there are tons of weaknesses in both of their arguments that are potential and they're also real. So we'll look at that next time. So that's your video for your next pro-con argument analysis.